Thanks, Nick. So I must admit, I've just put a note in apologising. We've been working on what we're doing to really pull together some of the results across the project in Work Package 6 to really sell the impact of what this project does that relates to how we can get our systems, our animals and our systems ready to achieve future efficiency and resilience. And I'm going to focus on the breeding for GHG mitigation. So some of this will have very few results from the project, but just stepping out how the project will feed into this topic and what we're doing to sell this message. So Hank's question, if you waited 10 minutes, maybe you'd see this is on our agenda. So I think I'm really looking forward to having that discussion after we've gone through these slides. So I wanted to highlight and just go at, well, actually, if we're going to breed for GHG mitigation, so reducing GHG emissions, we know from other projects and other activities around the world how important it is to consider the role of genetic improvement in addressing this. So still a lot of our breeding goals will focus on economic productivity, but more and more goals around the world are adapting to this, possibly more readily in dairy in the first instance, given the wealth of data they can build on, but also beginning to happen in beef. I'm just going to go through what we think are the main sort of modes of action in GenTORE, and how GenTORE can feed into future developments in this area. And I'm speaking to experts on this, so apologies if this seems a bit simplistic, but it does help to break it down into the areas that Henk and Jacques were challenging us on there just a second ago. We know that breeding for improved product efficiency, so animals producing milk, with less inputs as possible, or producing beef most efficiently over the shortest period of time, will have impact on, and a favourable impact if managed, on GHG emissions. We are adding to that in GenTORE, and I'll go through how. However, GenTORE is also not looking at this in isolation in terms of that short-term, period in dairy production or period in beef growth, and all of this efficiency is be considered across the lifetime efficiency of the animal. So yes, so that is from a dairy cow, does she produce that milk efficiently within and across lactations, and that she survives in the herd for an optimal amount of time. But on the beef side, yes, if you're breeding for production efficiency, what is happening on your dam longevity side of things, and that even if she's long-lived, that she herself is production-wise in terms of fertility efficient. And all then again we need to consider about how we breed for improved efficiency of the system, and we'll go through examples of those too. I was tasked with the GHG mitigation message, and what we hope to do by the end of Work Package 6, and particularly in some of the work that I think you will have seen presented during the Padua meeting, is does GHG breeding goals, does a goal that has GHG mitigation at its centre match our future climate and or systems that exist into the future? There's elements of that will feed in to some of the impact messaging that will come from GenTORE. So I'm just going to go through, I thought Moen's going through the technical aspects of genomics, and genomics as a tool is essential to breeding for improved GHG mitigation. So if we look at improved animal production efficiency, lots has been done across national and international projects on this. However, unique or novel within GenTORE. We can see that we're adding value through this simple historical approach of just looking at it within a lactation to looking at output production efficiency across the lifetime of an animal, and that is in both dairy and beef. Not really going to focus too much on this today, and possibly, depending on results, might be one of the things we focus on in terms of the modelling. We know that work package 3 is developing and has got some really good results about how data and digital tools can help measure efficiency in real time. And although maybe not directly breeding for GHG mitigation, they may help in managing animals, but also in terms of supplying data that will help improve accuracy of breeding for mitigation. So I just want to go through some of the results that Laurence, I'm sure, presented much better in Padua. Looking here at this, can the animal be productive across the lifetime? So it is this concept of, not milking her dry too early in her lifetime. So balancing short-term efficiency versus long-term efficiency, and leading to improved lifetime efficiency. And Laurence, across work package 2 and 6, has looked and has developed this really cool model of acquisition and allocation to help begin to understand how we would, from a biological efficiency point of view, how we would move to this more integrated way of looking at lifetime. And it's not lifetime feed efficiency, it's more complicated than that, but if we think of it in that simplistic sense, rather than where we've previously looked at feed efficiency usually in partial lactation models and data. And not only is this just looking at lifetime efficiency, but also looking at the interaction with the system. So thinking of what our future feeding systems will be. And particularly when you start thinking about resilience at an animal level, you could consider this as being resilience at an animal interacting with its system level. So this model has many, many uses and is one of the key output of GenTORE in relation to this and other topics. But really helps us understand and prove that lifetime efficiency is probably the more important goal rather than short-term efficiency. The next area is looking, and as we get things more complicated, moving away from just production efficiency into sort of these integrals across the lifetime, you can begin to see where the work packages are coming together to interact, and hopefully by the time we get to the end of my presentation, how we will hope in work package 6 to tie these together in terms of key impact messages. So again, building on Laurence's model, but also building that into lifetime efficiency in other types of statistical analysis, there's been a range of results that have looked at trait trade-offs, so animal trade-offs across the life course. So in achieving that, what do we see happens, in achieving production efficiency, what happens to fertility, longevity in a range of beef and dairy systems. And some of this we have had integrated with weather information. Mogens has just presented far better than me some of the really technical advances in how we statistically deal with crossbred genomic information and how that can be applied to traits and data that relate to lifetime efficiency. It'd be remiss not to mention also other management tools. Genetics is really important. I would say that as a geneticist, but also in work package 5, some of the tools about how you use real-time data to make important management decisions on what you do from a cow management point of view, both in dairy and beef, being led from some of the Irish data scenarios. And then obviously work package 4 and 6, as Mogens presented, in terms of how, how we can really enhance the statistical models to deal with crossbred data from a genetic and a genomic evaluation point of view, and then applying them to traits. So in work package 6, we've been taking some of the results and tools from GenTORE, building it in with matched activity that we have in the UK to begin to map out a scenario of what is the impact of the results from GenTORE and how we can apply this to other results from GenTORE. So I'll just go through that. So here we've been looking at developing this in terms of modeling it from a sort of a model UK scenario in the first instance, as you would expect from the UK team, and looking at how we can look at within and across breed data, particularly for female fertility in terms of that lifetime efficiency measures. So and this is then being linked to looking at resilience within these animals in terms of its interaction with weather scenarios, which Harriet presented in the Padua meeting. So, this is sort of, which is why I asked loads of questions, the challenge of working with this in the real sense of the data, where the data are available, and the nature of the data structure from a systematic point of view and a genetic point of view. But we can show that this is looking at a range of breeding for efficiency on the breeding cow side of things, and sort of build up the genetic results that we're seeing into what does this mean in terms of economic and GHG reductions. And breeding for, first of all, the female traits we're looking at here is age at first calving, dam longevity, and number of calves born, and incorporating these with crossbred data into a beef index looked at a cumulative economic return of nearly £50. I can't do the euro conversion per cow calving, and I definitely can't do the Australian dollars conversion, and a reduction in GHG emissions using carbon footprinting tools of nearly 100 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per cow calving. And obviously this scales up as cow numbers increase within a herd, and also as the years of selections accumulate over time. So taking on some of the target areas and some of the results that we're seeing from within GenTORE and within linked projects, we've mapped out in a very simplistic way using carbon footprinting tools we use within the UK, what are the potential impacts, both in an economic and a GHG emissions point of view, of the different routes of achieving GHG mitigation. So looking at those three main areas that I focused on earlier, so improving production efficiency, so that's growing, getting the carcass, this is in a beef set, and we're also doing a similar sort of process in dairy as well. Improving production efficiency over a 10-year horizon would increase profitability by 22% within the model system and 10% reduction in CO2 equivalents. That dam scenario, the detail which I just showed you, if we add that on top of it, so building production efficiency and including lifetime efficiency, we want both, that's our supposition, will again add to that, increasing profitability up to 35% and nearly doubling the GHG mitigation. Adding in that resource efficiency message across a short and longer lifetime enhances that further, increasing CO2 GHG mitigation up to nearly over 25%. And that is before we add genomics. And this is a bit more speculative because obviously we know from a straight genomic, simple purebred genomic, we can estimate what the increase in accuracy and reduction of generation interval will have for this. But if we also have more accurate crossbred information, so we have estimated this to be, to really not quite double those estimated benefits. Within the UK, we've been looking at this in relation to other developments in other projects. So, because this is all, these are not necessarily mutually exclusive. These are additive results, and we can use the same things to look at how enhanced, forages, high sugar grasses, etc., could be used to match the requirements of animals. And some of the results coming from other projects, including EU projects, about how we use rumen microflora to predict some of these traits as well. The last area that within the project, and results of this are just being finalised as we speak. So, and Jay presented some of these in the Padua meeting, so I didn't want to represent those, is breeding for improved efficiency of the system. We have a range of activities looking at this in a very simple way, the sort of G by E scenario, and how do we need to incorporate that into our breeding goals. But then also, as we achieve breeding, as we go about our breeding decision, are we creating animals that our future systems are able to service? So, and this is where we're interacting, particularly with work package 1, and matching it to sort of future climate scenarios. So in this, we're looking through simulation to look at a range of multi-trait breeding goals, predominantly focused on dairy, and we'll use a simpler model for beef, to look at what the future climate impact on traits and animals and systems may impact in terms of the direction and trajectory of the breeding goals that we're proposing. Now, this is a more complex model, and I'm not an economic modeler. And Jay, one of our now postdocs, has been developing this, where this integrated simulated model of a dairy farm is looking at all inputs and outputs, and able to really, in that parallel way, look at gross margin and emissions implications for not just the future breeding goals trajectory, but also the future climatic effects. And those results, as we would expect, show that there are some limitations on particularly some breeding goals in terms of whether the systems or the future climate scenarios will support the trajectory of those breeding goals, albeit it's quite small. So the next steps we're doing, and I've got a meeting this afternoon with the team on this, and working with the rest of the work packages, is to take some of the headline genetic results that have been presented about what potential traits or impact on breeding goals, particularly from work package 5, but also 2 and 4, and how this might mean for target changes in resilience and efficiency traits. We have already been developing from both a beef and dairy scenario a representative farm systems GHG modelling. So this is just GHG, not the economics, for a representative beef and dairy farm, looking at sort of an intermediate as well as some of the extremes in terms of grass-based versus not. And what we're planning to do in a similar way with the beef genetics is to do simplistic mapping of what potential change scenarios are on what a herd looks like in those systems in terms of types of animals and sort of key performance targets, and then be able to show and demonstrate to the industry what the impact would be in terms of GHG emissions. So yes, I think GenTORE on GHG mitigations, it sounds like a podcast, is developing and has already developed tools that will help breed for efficiencies that will achieve that GHG mitigation. And we've already shown that taking the narrow short-term either production or feed efficiency approach is possibly not the best way to do it, particularly when you move to more complex systems and genetics, and that lifetime efficiency is important as well. These tools are using real data and working with real farmers. So it is imperative on us to sort of map out those impacts. From a scientific point of view, the understanding of the biological drivers and levers of this lifetime efficiency is really important. But the headline message is there is a lot of low-hanging fruit, particularly in beef, and then a lot of added value from GenTORE in achieving real and cumulative GHG reductions. One of the important things in developing the impact scenarios, and Nick is going to hopefully, and Nick and the whole project will keep us right on this as we sort of do it over the next 6 months, is great science is brilliant, but actually getting farmers to uptake it is the key to achieving this. And this is where the impact mapping is really, really important. So this is why we're keen to really focus on building up some of these scenarios for altered breeding goals or ways of going about breeding. And particularly to begin to help farmers understand this, where there are win-wins and where there may be trade-offs that they need to consider. And hopefully bring them on their journey. I think that's it, Nick. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Eileen.